actively engaged with my team and stakeholders during my first week. So one can say I have hit the ground running. I actually engaged with the departments to find out exactly and to get a better understanding in the ministry's key operation, challenges, and opportunities. First, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Secretary General, Ms. Joy Arnell, for her invaluable guidance and support during my initial days in office. During my initial meeting with SG, we discussed the personnel challenges within the ministry, such as the understaffing and the function book that needs to be updated. I was also privileged to meet most of the dedicated civil servants of the ministry who have worked tirelessly every day to serve the people of St. Martin, especially in their times of need. Their passion and dedication are truly inspiring. Thank you. As I said, I hit the ground running. Sworn in on the 26th. Immediately on the 27th, my team and I met briefly with department heads for the ministry, for the public health, social development, and labor. These individuals included Ms. Fana Anel, Ms. Chantal Kroeneveld, Ms. Peggy-Ann Drost-Richardson. These discussions provided critical insight into the important projects that are leading and the challenges they are facing, such as understaffing, something that keeps on coming up in all the different departments. We have also begun the review of the budget, identifying key priorities for immediate and long-term actions. Later that day, we were informed of a present situation at the St. Martin Medical Center. Immediately, what I did is that I, together with my colleague Minister of Army and with the department related to VSA, we sent out the relevant departments, inspectors, to look at the situation. In addition to those departments, I also sent out a member of my cabinet also to join them in order to find out exactly what was the situation at the medical center. At that time it was, it was very important for us to make sure that all stakeholders were there. So we also met with members of the union. We also met with members of management, as it was really important because it is a health-related matter, or could have been developed into a health-related matter, which had our priority. We understand that everything is right now under control, but we are still monitoring the situation, and we'll also have follow-up during the coming weeks. In the evening, I attended the Grand Bogart of the insurance, the opening celebration of Bogart Insurance at their new locations in Cahill. And that was my first day as VSR minister. On the second day, and I'm just giving you an insight just to let you know that I did hit the ground running. On the 28th, we had a National Career Fair, delivered live here presentation on St. Martin regarding to the Working in the Caribbean event that will be held on March 28th and 29th in the Netherlands for the integration of on and offline talents to try to recruit individuals to come back to St. Martin to work. On Thursday was one of the highlights of my day, where I got to enjoy the Thanksgiving dinner with our senior citizens, home away from home elderly organizations, sharing time with our seniors, reminded me of the importance of fostering a sense of community and care, principle that will help guide me as your VSR minister. On the 29th, I visited the Collective Preventive Services, CPS, where I had a constructive discussion with Ms. Eva Lisa DeWeaver, correct? I may have pronounced the name wrong, apologies, regarding the department's goal of upgrading, especially when it comes to the technical aspect, and persistent challenges of the department that the department is facing. At the inspectorate, I witnessed a remarkable effort of team that was largely managing itself, despite the limited resources. My visit to the ambulance also allowed me to engage with Mr. Richardson about key issues, including ambulance repair, the fleet, and the urgent upgrade of their facilities. In addition, as part of my commitment to social development and empowerment, I was honored to attend the master classes just for men and dads organized by the Department of Community Development, Family, Humanitarian Affairs. This initiative underscores the importance of strengthening our community and empowering individuals, values to which I wholeheartedly support. The highlight of my week was attending church. I attended the Methodist Church service in Phillipsburg and had the honor to receive a special blessing, which holds deep meaning to me. Because while going through talking to the different ministries of the department, I understand that it is not something, all solutions cannot come by me alone or by my fellow colleagues, but it's something that I truly believe that I need help from the Almighty in order to solve the issues of our people. So definitely, that is definitely one of the highlights of my first week in office. On Monday, December 2nd, I continued, where I met with the NRPB to discuss one of the most important priorities of my ministry, for me, in my opinion, which is the mental well-being of our community. It is something that definitely has my attention, especially with the recent suicide rate, the amount of young children that are committing suicide. So at NRPB, one of the discussions that we had was starting and finalizing the NRPP project when it relates to the facilities for mental health. We discussed about the potential challenges that the construction it may face, and we agreed that we're going to work together, that once these challenges are known, we're going to work together in order to solve them. But both parties, the ministry together with NRPB, has decided that we are going to, this is one of the projects we're going to do our utmost best to finish within these 4 years.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
My question is for Minister of Education. So I am referring to the PFP's manifesto, your campaign manifesto. And in here you mentioned that there's non-negotiable coalition issues. There's 3 that you've mentioned. So one is about updating the LBHAM for financial management, having to do with the tender process. The other is about a realistic spatial development approach to the development of the island. And the third, which is interesting, is about the persons in the cabinet. So what is your plan to tackle these 3 deal breakers for PFP? And as it pertains to the cabinet, I believe you need legislation to actually do a screening process, but would each of the ministries be willing to provide the public a list, at least, of all of the cabinet members? Are they politically affiliated? and what's their background and role in your cabinet?
Well, I'll be posting the information on my cabinet later today. In terms of the other deal breakers, I do know that other Minister Gums has already spoken about his intention to come together with a cohesive and a feasible spatial planning strategy. So I'll leave that for Vrami to handle. In terms of the El Beham, that was actually delivered to the Minister of Finance while I was still in Parliament. So that is in process and it's being worked on. So the legislation is there to be reviewed. Of course, as you know, capacity issues exist as well in legal affairs and government. So it will be for them to review it and move it forward in the legislative process. In terms of cabinet, I have two persons that are politically affiliated but come from educational backgrounds as well as ICT backgrounds. I built a cabinet that is strong in policy and that can actually help move the ministry forward on that evidence-based policy making that I'm speaking of, also steeped in the reality of what is facing young people today, and as well as our culture and youth and sports departments, because one of them also has that sports background. So for the other cabinets, I think as a party, we've always said that we will share our opinion. Everyone knows where we stand when it comes to the integrity of persons in cabinets, in government, in this arena in general. So persons will be held accountable behind closed doors and in public if necessary. And I think we've always made that abundantly clear.
Just for clarity, I think it mentions basically an equal accountability as ministers and parliamentarians, which implies some sort of a formal screening process.
Yes.
Will there be?
So there has
something?
been, the Prime Minister himself has spoken even before this mandate about the establishment of a screening law. Within Parliament, there is a plan to tackle certain areas of electoral reform that I think also includes a screening law, but of course I'm not on that side, so I can't speak to where that is right now. And I think that overall we can all agree that a screening law is a priority moving forward, because we don't want to see the difficulties in what has occurred over this year when it comes to screening, the subjective decision making, to continue.
Will you be able to speak as the Deputy Prime Minister about the bond issued by the Central Bank?
So unfortunately, I'm no longer Deputy Prime Minister, or maybe fortunately. The Deputy Prime Minister is now the Minister of TEAT. So Minister Grisha Heidegger-Martin is Deputy Prime Minister, and I'm her deputy.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the bond, I wouldn't touch upon it today, but I will encourage you to share the question with her, and then she'll reply upon her turn.
Then I have a question about your ministry.
Yes.
In this press briefing, you said that you would allow citizens the legally established right to appeal permits, building permits, hindrance permits, etc. However, 2 weeks ago, in the last National Gazette, there was a list of 47 permits published, and 44 of those had already become final, because only the last 3 issued on October 20 were within the 6-week time frame to appeal. And those have passed now too. It is impossible to see what these permits are actually for. Starting with the one on 8 May, Simpson Bay Road 111. It's a commercial permit, but when you go there, you see it's fully built. So where is this, what commercial development is going to be there, and how is that when that's already buildings there? There's another on Simpson Bay Road 58 that was said that is Dolce, and it was said that Mr. Doran had issued this permit. But from this list, it is apparent that it was issued on July 12th. So that is 3 months after the Marcelina cabinet was installed. And this is residential, but this is a commercial apartment building that highly affects the neighborhood, and you would have received a lot of appeals if only people had known. Then,
Jacqueline, can you kindly pose a question to the minister, please? Thank you.
The question is, will you allow the media access to the building permits issued within the time frame of 6 weeks, so we can share the information with the public and people have the chance to know what is going to be built where, and allow them the chance to appeal?
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Indeed, we've actually had this discussion regarding the issuance of building permits. Important to know that if the building permit is published in the National Gazette, doesn't mean that I issued it. What is the biggest problem we've had within the Ministry of Revenue when coming office, and I've realized, building permits are issued and they're never published in the Gazette on time. So Dulce was never signed by my person. I didn't even have this discussion. So it being published in the Lance Courant is a technical error of the ministry in terms of its obligations to publish on time. Something that needs to be addressed. Regarding the possibility of media access, we have discussed it as well with options as well with what we can do with the different permits. One, of course, is publication in the sort of existing papers that exist. Two, we've also had a discussion and suggestion coming from within the ministry as well and within the government is publication on SXM.gov. The government's website, sxmgov.org. I think very true. The biggest issue, and I agree with you, publication has to be on time. Because again, it's a question of the legal ability to reply and to protest a permit. And if something is published July 12th, but signed in a whole different mandate and governance, then already your legal obligation to respond is already mitigated. So this has to be addressed. I am completely committed to transparency. I think what we have to address, of course, is the capacity and, of course, the clerical errors that happen within the ministry. And this has to be addressed and to ensure that things like this don't happen. Because it's impossible that something that everyone has been talking about, even during campaign of March and May, is only published now in July. So I completely agree. And indeed, I think what we have to do is go back to the drawing board on how we basically manage things like governance. And I mentioned it as part of my critical areas for identification, for attention in my mandate. And one of them is the first thing is digitalization of our permit system. Currently, what happens is that permits come in and basically no one hears about them unless they know the minister and can call the minister to get information. It's a severe capacity issue, and we're moving toward digitalizing. So the idea is once you get your building permit handed in, you know exactly who has it and for how long, and you can track the permit process. So by the time the permit is actually completed, we can flag it already and have everybody know that they can publicly, everyone knows publicly this permit is going to be issued and they can actually respond in time. Because with the issue, for example, this is published on July 12th, you already have a very limited amount of time as to when you can actually
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
It's time for a new brand that is as bold, vibrant, and colorful as the island of St. Martin, with colors drawn from our diversity, cultural heritage, and nature. Our breathtaking beaches, waters, and sun, the majestic brown pelican, our national symbol, the radiant yellow sage, our national flower, the historic border monument signifying the Dutch and French side, our exciting cruise, yachting, and boating ports, renowned Maho Beach and St. Martin Airport, the hub to the Caribbean. All these parts come together to create the shape of the island of St. Martin. More than a logo. It's a new brand that engages, excites, and will inspire travelers to book. It's time to tell the St. Martin story, to reintroduce travelers to St. Martin. honor our past, to embrace our present, and shape our future. Our culture and diversity. Dutch and French sides, unrivaled cuisine, twice the nightlife, entertainment, and shopping. Cruises, boating, and yachting. Twice the adventure, exploration, and relaxation. Splendid and scenic accommodations. Pinel, Tentamar, and island hopping in the Caribbean. Whatever your taste, St. Martin has more. Experience twice the Caribbean. St. Martin.
All right, folks, so here's the question. Should someone who intentionally exposes someone else with the HIV virus, should they get the full force of the law? Attorney at law Bert Samuels, I think so, and he joins us with more on the topic. Good morning, Mr. Samuels. How are you, sir?
Well, the prosecutor has to go to the Offences Against the Persons Act, which is an 1864 law, long before HIV took its toll in late 70s, early 80s, when it was a death sentence. And they have to carve out sections 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, which really has to do with administering a poisonous or dangerous substance on another person, causing grievous bodily harm. So it is an innovative way to use an old law, an 1864 law, 1 year before Morant Bay Rebellion, and putting that and trying to fix 19 in the 70s and 80s, rather.
Yeah.
So my thing is, we should have a law on its own.
Yeah, but even with that law, I'm not certain I got the answer. That what you go jail, you're fined.
Oh yes, and well, the section they were relying on is for 3 years. Really, 3 years. And remember, when it began to take its toll, that is HIV, it was a death sentence because there was no cure, or there was nothing to abate the effects of HIV. So at that time, it was inordinately inadequate for 3 years, where someone deliberately infects you.
3 years in jail?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Given that it's no longer a death sentence, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but given that it no longer is a death sentence, don't you think that a 3-year custodial sentence is fair enough for someone who does that?
That's interesting. This is what the parliamentarians debate, right? And if I were in that debate, my position would be, if you cause me to be taking medication for the rest of my life, and in the long run, shorten my life, I don't think 3 years is adequate. Other kinds of injuries, which are that lasting, would attract at least 10, 15 years. So I don't think that is adequate. It's 3 years. I would not vote for 3 years. I'd vote for a maximum of 15 years and leave it up to the judge to give something within the range, depending on how egregious it is.
Why 15?
Well, because taking medication for the rest of my life and I have to be practicing safe sex with everyone, that's a totally inhibiting state of life. So that's too life adjusting when the person did it deliberately.
Yeah.
How do you prove that it was a deliberate spread?
No, that's a great challenge for the prosecutor. The ideal case would be that the prosecutor brings that you went and got tested and the results were told to you. And after that date, you had unprotected sex. That's the classic way that I would approach the proof of that case.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson, J.M.R. Johnson, who is the Policy and Advocacy Officer, he said that criminalizing willful transmission would exacerbate existing social barriers for people living with HIV. He also goes on to say that if it is to be criminalized in any way, the move should also apply to other sexually transmitted infections. You want to talk about that?
Well, I think what he's alluding to is that he doesn't want HIV to be, as it were, the only thing that becomes offensive, because the AIDS, people who are dealing with the advocates for the protection of persons with AIDS, do not like when discriminatory positions are put against them as a group. So he's saying that, gonorrhea, any other kind of sexual infectious disease should also be along in the catalog. And we shouldn't single out HIV because it already has its adverse, approach in life. But I must tell you, there's an interesting provision in the Sexual Offences Act, Section 5 of the Sexual Offences Act, which seeks to have marital rape. So this is how the law looks at it. It says that if a husband gets consensual sex with his wife, but he knew he had an infectious disease, it converts that consensual sex to rape.
Wow.